I heard about a fitness forum where someone was complaining about the all-milk diet that had been hyped up to him and how it would help him gain a ton of weight. So like, all right, so let's just go over what you've been doing. So you're drinking a ton of milk every day. Yes. All right, so what are the solids you're having with it? Solids?
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and welcome to the Great and Grim podcast. He's great.
He's grim.
And introducing our new guest, David.
Hi, I'm David.
He's just some guy, random guy we decided to join us on the podcast. Cause,
random guy we've only known for, 25 years?
Something like
for
that.
For you, at
Something
least.
like that. Who's counting?
Who is? Not me.
Of course not. So what's on the docket for today?
I can tell you about one game I've been playing a
games.
lot in the last week. Yeah, who doesn't love games? It's been featuring nature's fiercest creatures.
Are they the bears?
No, it's the beaver. Come on. They're deadly. They got those giant teeth. They don't just bite, they gnaw, so much more painful. It's called Timberborn, and it takes place in a dystopic future where all the humans have died out, and the remaining civilization is beavers.
Didn't South Park do this?
You're pulling my leg, right?
I'm absolutely not pulling your leg.
Sounds fantastic.
It's great. Like, I'm assuming you played SimCity in the past?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like years ago.
Yeah.
SimCity 2000.
There you go. It's exactly like that, but beavers. It's not exactly like that.
Do you build dams?
You do build dams, and you use dynamite, and you dismantle ruins from the human civilization.
Beavers have dynamite?
They're very smart beavers.
This is fantastic.
They were given a chance.
Are they like anthropomorphic beavers or like our beavers that waddle around?
Like our beavers that waddle around, but they're good at waddling while holding stuff.
Oh, so they have dexterity is what you're telling me.
They sure do.
Oh my god, this is amazing.
But the main thing you have to deal with in this game is droughts. So every few days or every few weeks, you'll end up with a drought where it starts off pretty short, like 3 days where there's no water. And a lot of your power comes from water, maybe wind once you get a few more technologies unlocked. But to make anything work, you try and get water, and your beavers go thirsty really easily if you don't stock up enough, and they die. So you try and avoid that, stock up as much as you can, and as the droughts get worse and worse, you gotta build bigger stockpiles.
This is Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah, it's like Dwarf Fortress, pretty much.
So do droughts just progress over time, become longer and longer each time, like forever?
That's been my experience, but I think there is a drop-off at like 7 days, maybe it goes to 9 days at some point. The game's still in early access, so
It'll change.
there's no real end point to the game right now. It's pretty much you get to a point where you have so many things built that your frame rate dies, and you're just doing 1 frame a second, and you're like, all right, you know what?
Good.
I won. Calling it here.
See, I hate that mechanic. If you remember Endless Legend, where it was the 4X game that was really cool, its mechanic was that over time, winter would come in and winter becomes longer and longer. And,
It was a fun game.
It was a fun game until you got to the end game where it was winter all the time because your economy is just destroyed essentially. Your units and your commanders can only move half the range they could normally. And so you had multiple tech trees that you could go down, but the one that you were essentially forced to go down every single time was the winter tree, so you'd have full movement. So it was just a limiting factor. It's like, well, do you want to do all this cool stuff? No, gotta go winter, because I know if I get to endgame at turn 200, it's gonna be winter all the time with maybe 1 day of summer.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure they made it that way to be an unsubtle hint that you should try and win before that, but yeah, sometimes I just want to play for as long as possible and see all the cool things I can do.
Yeah, sometimes I just want to conquer the whole world. Like, I don't care.
We want to paint a map.
Yeah, that's, like, I mean, isn't that the thing with Civilization, which I never got into, where you have, win conditions, but if you want, you can keep playing through that.
Oh yeah, I mean you do the same thing in like Crusader Kings.
Yeah.
Right? Like you at a certain point you need to set yourself your own goal, right? Like I was making in Crusader Kings 3 I was working towards making the Isle of Man and something or other for a kingdom. I was just going to take over all of the islands in the world.
You were going to be a naval power?
I was a naval power. I started as the Vikings and then took the Isle of Man and then parts of Scotland to make this kingdom, this special kingdom. So it was fun.
Now, in that game, most of what I know about it is tons of incest, and you can become the Pope.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Like you could.
I mean, a Viking Pope, that's a nice change.
Yeah, well, so, like, from, like, an incest perspective, like, you really don't need to do that. So, the Vikings are a little cheaty, because you can set up their succession system as, like, Scandinavian elective. So you can just elect your successor, as long as they're in your family, and they control enough stuff. So, like, you don't need to do the whole incest, like keep the bloodline pure thing that you need to do when you're playing, like, a Christian nation.
Okay, the Christians demand incest.
Well, because the way their succession works, right? Like, until you get to a certain technological level, it splits up amongst your heirs evenly.
Okay.
Right? So you need to, like, raise the perfect kid and then murder all of your offspring.
I see some flaws in this plan, but if it works for them.
Otherwise, every time succession happens, you end up in this, like, civil war for a few years where you're just, like, taking all of your younger siblings to task.
Okay, some flaws.
Yeah.
But it sounds like Vikings are the way to go.
Yeah, Vikings were definitely the way to go. 100%. The game gets a little easy playing as them, though. At least until up to a certain point.
And then Vikings just can't keep going? Fewer people to raid?
Well, no. So, like, you have to choose whether or not you're going to become feudal society or not.
Yeah.
But if you become feudal, at least in Crusader Kings 3, which is a little silly, or at least when I was playing it, I'm sure they fixed it by now because it was a huge complaint. Your technology level, like, went back to the start, basically, because you were a tribal system to a feudal system. So, like, everything restarts for you, basically. So you lose all of your investments and stuff. So you essentially become poor just from transitioning.
What a comment on our society.
Yeah. It's also very hard to explain because the mechanic, it's Crusader Kings. Like, it's such an in-depth game.
All I know is you can assassinate yourself.
Yeah, you definitely can. You can do a lot of stuff.
I think I said all I know for 3 different things, but yeah.
But yeah, this beaver game sounds hilarious.
Would definitely recommend it. If you're put off by early access, that's fair. Don't need to get it now, but I've had a lot of fun. I got my money's worth, by which I mean I got it as a gift and didn't pay anything.
That's the best way to get stuff.
Yeah, I can
Absolutely.
agree with that.
So how about you, Mr. Grimm? Anything you've been playing or watching?
I only play one game, and that's World of Warcraft, because I paid money for it.
You're an addict.
I know, right? Well, I mean, I hate subscription-based systems on, principle, and also because with the way my mind works is that if I'm paying for time, that time that I have to play should be on the game that I'm paying for said time. So when I do break down and buy a month of, World of Warcraft, I will only play World of Warcraft, which then generally makes it so that I burn myself out pretty fast and then I don't play it again for, a year or two.
I mean, makes sense.
Is actually a very fair way to go.
Yeah. I mean, makes sense. It would be nice if the subscription model was, like, total playtime.
Yeah, that would be nice, but then I feel like, how many hours is a month then? I feel like people would buy 1 month and then they'd last them for a year.
I mean, yeah, you're probably not wrong.
Or they'd just be like, okay, fine, you get 24 hours worth. Well, if you're an addict in some way, shape, or form, then you're going to be buying a lot more, and then your whales are screwed.
And then you go, well, maybe they should just go free to play, and then it's like, yeah, and then pay to win.
I mean, technically, you can kind of pay to win in any MMO. I mean, not that I've done it, but mostly because I'm too poor. But there are people who will literally carry you through endgame raids in order to get gear and, the mount that you can get.
Yeah, I mean, I know. You used to run me through raids.
Well, no, I never ran anyone through raids. I ran you through dungeons.
Okay, I'll pretend I know what the difference is. So,
in this world of Warcraft, essentially the way it's supposed to go is you level your character, and as you level, you go through dungeons, which used to be called instances. They probably still are because they're instance dungeons, and they are 5-man things. And then once you get to, max level, you start doing raids. Now, in Classic WoW, you pretty much jumped immediately to 40-man raids, but that's a lot of people. So in subsequent ones, they tried to ease you into it. So you have 10-man raids, and then it goes up to only 25-man.
I mean, 40 is a ton of people.
Yes, it is. And so pretty much what I do is I only like leveling. I'm not a big fan of dungeons, though I will run them with the looking for group system that they have, which a lot of people hate. And then I run legacy raids solo, because I've never played raids. I have no desire to, join a guild and have a dedicated raiding day where you spend X amount of hours together trying to learn mechanics and run bosses. It just doesn't appeal to me. And so, because I never experienced them, I run them when I'm over leveled, so I can just see what they are.
I mean, that's fair.
And breeze through it. Yeah, and so that's what I've been doing, except then you get to the point where, for some reason that is beyond me, they still have a 1-week lockout even on old raids. So a raid that I can run in 5 minutes, I'm only allowed to do it once a week.
That's silly.
Yeah, it's really stupid, and because the only reason anyone runs these old raids is because they want the transmogs, which is essentially cosmetic skins for armor from old tier sets because they look cool. So you're going in there once a week, killing whatever all the bosses, but all the bosses drop select gear. So if I need the headpiece for this tier set, there's only one boss in that raid that drops it, and I have whatever, an X% chance of getting it, and I might not get it at all, and then have to wait a week again to go back in.
Yeah, that seems like a nightmare.
And it serves no purpose.
Yeah, like why is there a timer on it?
Yeah, there's no reason. Well, the reason people give is they say, well, if you could just run it as much as you want, then it, ruins how special those items are. To which I think, well, it's just, you're stupid. Because, for example, the big one everyone wants are the mounts. Because the mounts only drop off the final boss of whatever raids, and it has like a 1% drop rate. But once you get that mount and you add it to your account, it's activated for every single character. So one of the big ones is, for instance, Ashes of Alar. Everybody wants it. It's a flaming phoenix mount. Some say it looks cool. I personally am not the biggest fan, but I had it drop for me. I was like, cool, I have it. And then I was running the same raid on my druid, and it dropped again. This item has no value for me.
Can you sell it?
And I can't do anything with it. Nope, can't sell it. It's soulbound, so it just sits there. And I'm like, well, do I just delete it? So it's either put it in your bank for clout, I guess, or delete it. And so you're just sitting there, and people are like, yeah, but my Ashes of Alar mount is so cool. And my answer is, no, it's not. There are so many mounts in the games now, hundreds of them, that no one's running the same mount.
God, do you remember when flying mounts came out?
Yes, I do. And it was terrible, and everyone hates it. And by that I mean it's amazing, and everyone loves it because flying is way better. Though in Burning Crusade, when it first came out, your flying mount was actually slower than the epic running mount.
I mean, that makes sense.
I was about to ask, is there a big difference between all the mounts apart from cosmetics and being able to fly or walk?
So back in the day, it was essentially based on what mount you had. I can't remember the criteria, but when Burning Crusade, which was the first expansion, came out, if you were good in, I can't remember if it was arenas like PvP or if it was grinding a particular rep, but there were mounts that you could get that gave you 310% flying speed. Now, if you just had money and you bought epic flying, you only went to 280. So there was a way to get an extra 30%, and I can't remember what it was because I never tried to get it. Now, however, everything is entirely based around just going to a trainer and buying it. So you just buy, the 60% ground speed, 100% ground speed. Then they changed it because everyone hated 60% flying speed, because why the heck are you paying money for a slower flying mount than a running one? So now it's 150% flying, and then you just get 310% flying. And it doesn't matter which mount you're using now. If I use what used to be, a slow mount that was 60%, and I mount it now, it will run at 100%. And what's nice is that they actually have a button put in with where you can track how many mounts you have, where you can literally press it and get a random mount. That's all I care about. These low percent mounts that I have, I don't give a crap. I'm not putting them on for clout. I'm just adding them so that I have a larger selection to go through when I click the random button.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, so the point is that the fact that they still have lockouts on old raids that I can run through in 5 minutes and old heroic dungeons, which is once a day, is really stupid.
I'll be honest, most of what I hear about World of Warcraft these days is complaints. It doesn't help that I'm usually talking with you about it, and you have a few things to say, but usually when I hear something, it's not great. The changes they made are intrusive and ruining the gameplay, and that's why people are returning to Warcraft Vanilla, which I don't know a ton about, but I know you did, and you have spoken about this already.
Yeah, and the Road to Rag is finished. They have now successfully done the hardcore Ragnaros. Both raids that I watched for it had 2 deaths on the boss, so it sucks to be those 4 people. And yeah, for now, the journey there is done. But I mean, I guess it's the kind of experience you want, because original classic vanilla, for the most part, is very streamlined, right? Mm-hmm. Your goal is to get to max level and then raid and kill Ragnaros. It's very simple. But then as the game grew over time, what people call it's a theme park. There's a lot of stuff you can do, and there's a lot of stuff that I would love to do. They essentially have Pokemon in the game where you can travel the world, find creatures, and you can fight them, capture them, train them up, level them, and then fight against, other people or NPC trainers as
Seriously?
well. Yeah, and I've never gotten around to that. Same thing with another thing I enjoy doing is grabbing my hunters and going searching for rare pets to actually capture, which is different from the Pokemon pets. But yeah, and that's something fun. The problem is that I would love to be able to show up one day and be like, oh yeah, today I want to do Pokemon. Today I want to go pet hunting. Or today I just want to, dungeon or something. But I can't do that because they have these stupid FOMO mechanics in there. Where it's like, oh, well, if you ever want to get this transmog, you can only run it once a week. Better run it, or else you're essentially wasting that week.
Yeah.
Right? So then I get into this position where I have, 17 level 50 characters that I'm trying to run through these raids, because if I don't do it this week, then I've essentially wasted a week where it might have dropped for me.
Yeah.
And so then I just get burned out and I move away.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and it's just a situation where you should play in whichever way is most fun for you, so long as it's not affecting anything. And I mean, if you're doing, current rating, then, fine, have your 1 week lockout. Who cares? Because that gear is used in, PvP and whatnot. But if you're just running for transmogs or something, who gives a crap?
Yeah. I mean, who gives a crap in general? Just let people run them as much as they want.
It's a deep question.
Paying to play your game, let them play your game. What are you trying to save?
Exactly.
Some fake economy?
It's not even economy, it's just that it's people who get all offended of, oh, I had to do it once a week to get my 1% drop rate. So it's just people getting upset about stuff all the time. Because of course you are. The more you get invested in something, the more you see fault with it, and the more you're going to complain.
I mean, yeah, that's also true.
They did make really stupid changes to flying that I hate, and I think they're terrible, and they're idiots for doing it, and I hate them. So there's that. Well, they made it starting in, I want to say, Warlords of Draenor, where the only way to be able to fly in those zones is if you complete a list of achievement stuff. So explore every zone, complete all the storylines, get revered reputation with a bunch of people. And some of it isn't bad. It's not bad exploring the areas, it's not bad doing the storylines, but then I ended up in a situation where I had to grind out just reputation faction, and it's boring and I hate it, and it's really stupid. And you sit there and you're like, you had the perfect system already in place, which is buy it with money.
Exactly.
If I like questing, I can make money through questing. If I like raiding in dungeons, I can make money through raiding in dungeons. Who knows, maybe I'm some 80-year-old grandma who really just likes Pokemon pet battling. You can make money through doing that as well. So you have all these systems that are in place that can get you money, and you should be able to use that to then buy flying. But instead, the game says, oh, we're worried about people who are just burning through the content too quickly and leaving. So we now need to force them to do all these things they hate. No, just let them do what they enjoy.
Yeah, but that doesn't keep your subscriptions rolling in, right?
Except there's so much stuff to do nowadays.
If you didn't put up these artificial blocks into doing it, people wouldn't really run out of content.
Exactly. Again, I've said I want to try the Pokemon stuff. I just don't have any time for it. Now, maybe I wouldn't like it. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's really dumb.
I mean, it sounds kind of dumb to me too.
But I also still love the game like crazy.
That's also fair.
That's why you keep playing it.
Yeah, and that's why you should play it and get run through.
Someday, when my will has completely fallen, you're just going to have to keep picking away at me, and someday I'll give in. But I'm going to do my best to try and not play it.
Well, I'll run you through all the raids.
Perfect. I do have a kind of slightly related question, then a tiny question to add after that. How do you guys feel about the Metaverse that Facebook, but not called Facebook anymore?
I know nothing about it.
Yeah, my second question is, how much do you know about the Meta and their Metaverse and all their plans for that sort of thing?
Yeah, but in regards to Metaverse, what is that exactly?
It's essentially Second Life, but using VR.
Yeah, it sounds like
That's it.
It sounds like a nightmare.
Wow, that's actually interesting.
Is it?
I mean, no.
Just just in the sense that Second Life. Not that I ever had anything to do with Second Life. Pretty much the only thing I know about Second Life is when it was in Hot Tub Time Machine, where John Cusack's nephew was role-playing him being in prison.
Yes.
But I know that there's these huge communities that have developed in Second Life for all weird fringe stuff, and I wonder how that will turn out for Metaverse. Honestly, the biggest thing is that you need to have a user base, and right off the bat, VR is I'm not going to say it's a failed.
It's niche, I would say.
Yeah. It's like 3D but worse. for people who have like used it,
right? Like nobody knows how to use it effectively, right? Like,
well, how do you use
exactly?
it effectively?
Well,
That's
you need a multi-directional treadmill, and
You want full immersion.
yeah, exactly, because it's VR. Basically, Ready Player One.
Yeah, but is that a better system?
I mean,
because
it's what
I would
people
argue
want,
that it's
ultimately.
not.
I mean, I'm a dinosaur. I like playing on a computer with a mouse and keyboard. VR seems like a nightmare to me.
Well, it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of how do you make something. Let's take an example of something that I've played. Like, let's say Call of Duty.
All right.
Now, granted, my Call of Duty is Call of Duty 2. You're having a situation where you're alternating between, walking and running. But if you were to translate the speeds that you're walking/running at into real time, you're moving at a ridiculous 10 meters a second or some garbage, right? We don't notice it because we're used to how fast our characters are moving, but then if you do something in VR, you're suddenly moving way slower.
Well, yeah, it would need to be, like, it would have to take normal, like, the speed that you run on the treadmill would have to be taken into account through the system somehow.
Yeah, exactly. So then you just have this weird procedural generation, like, oh, you're moving at X meters a second, therefore you're going to have this long of a hallway.
Mm-hmm.
Or something along those lines. And while that can be interesting, I argue that it would instead slow games down, which is something that people don't want.
I mean, yeah, that's fair.
Right now, yeah, we're now at a situation where people are like, if this game hasn't grabbed me in the first 20 minutes, I'm not playing it.
I do also feel like if you're completely immersed in that way, like you feel the weight, how far you have to run is more difficult. It makes you appreciate the scale of the game. Like, if you're running across all of Skyrim and you're physically having to run, I think you're going to appreciate the scenery a little more than you would just playing the game on the computer or console.
Except I'd argue in that situation, most people, just like they do in Skyrim, are just going to fast travel.
You're completely right in that point.
Yeah.
But you also have to explore.
They'll run the first time, or they'll just take the carriage, which is essentially fast travel as well, and then they'll just map warp to wherever they need to be. Because I still think that it's a gimmick, and it's expensive to take up. It's not a better gaming experience. You're not gonna be able to VR Dark Souls, for instance.
Maybe someday you could, if they made
Maybe.
the technology to do it and had like rooms that are self-contained and gave haptic feedback from every area or something. So yeah, it would be a huge hardware sink.
Yeah, and money, and
Yep.
I just don't think it'll ever be picked up.
I could see it being like a studio thing, like there's VR places you can go, like an internet cafe sort of thing, where you can rent that sort of hardware. I could see that sort of thing be more of a rent instead of own.
Yeah, I consider it to be like locked rooms.
Yeah.
It'll be something
Yeah.
like that where you run an
I can see that
adventure and they're curated for that, but it's not going to be as I don't consider those to be the same thing as, gaming.
Well, I consider it like an arcade versus what you own at home.
Yeah, exactly, but how many people do you know who in the grand scheme of things have, those giant arcade games in their homes? And the answer is for me 0.
I can think
know
of one.
2 people.
Yeah.
I can two. I can think of 2.
And how many do you know who game? Like, just, have Steam or something.
Oh, much more. Obviously, I was
Yeah.
just saying I can think of 2.
Yeah, but so I agree that it's just niche, and I just don't think that VR is
I mean,
the future.
I know one person who has VR.
And do they even use it a lot?
I don't know. Do you use it a lot?
He doesn't have VR anymore.
Nope.
Never mind. I know nobody that has
He
VR.
lost it.
I lost it
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Because there's only been there's 2, if I were to buy VR, it would be for one game and then I'd pick up a second. And the only game that I think currently in existence that does really well with VR is Beat Sabers.
That's true.
I'll take your word on it. I have no idea what that game is.
There is also VR chat, but you can play that one on your computer as well with a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah. Like, VR chat is what I assume Metaverse would become. The big difference is that's just pretty much a chat room. Like, it's not so much a game.
But you do get to express yourself with how you design your character. In the metaverse, it's essentially you're playing as a me, and everything is run by Facebook, so if you want to try and personalize your character in any way or do anything cool, I'm sure they'll try and monetize it in some way.
That's gross.
Absolutely, and I think that's a big reason that it's not going to go anywhere, because who trusts Facebook?
No one.
No, absolutely
Old
no
people.
one.
And more importantly, the only people who use Facebook now are like the older people who are just ingrained with it for the most part.
Yeah, like...
I use it to remind myself of people's birthdays, and that's it.
Yeah, and even then it does not do an adequate job.
No.
So...
All in all, boo Facebook, I guess.
Yeah.
Not really
boo Facebook.
a rare opinion these days, but...
And boo VR, where boo VR means I'm actually kind of jealous and I wish I had a VR set. I'm just not willing to shell out over $1,000 for it. Because I honestly would love to try out Beat Saber.
I mean, you would need a new computer, too.
No, that's true. But yeah, and then if you could just, upload your own music, I don't know if you're still allowed to do that. Probably not, but I'm sure there's ways to do it. Then that would be great. It's essentially like Dance Dance Revolution, but in VR.
I mean, that does sound kind of enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the most successful VR game, I would argue, as in critical reception and how quickly it was picked up, would be Half-Life Alyx, which I haven't played, obviously.
I mean,
and even then,
I don't think I could play it. I don't have VR.
You can't. And even then, and it has 40,000 positive reviews on Steam or some such. It was incredibly popular, and it caused a bunch of people to go buy VR. But I would love to see the data in how quickly it dropped off. Because I would imagine that for the first month or two, there was a huge pickup in VR, and then it just died. Because everyone who was going to get it because of it just did.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the issue when you quote-unquote console has only one good game, right?
I mean, there are games I would buy again if they did come out in VR and I happen to have it. Like, Resident Evil 4 came out with a VR version. I would definitely buy that game again, get my head chopped off with a chainsaw, just to try it out, because I love that.
How would you even play that in VR? Is it first person?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
It's first person. I've seen some people on YouTube play it, but even then, it's one of those weird things for immersion, because when you see them play it, there was another one they recently came out with, which was, what was the game developed in Australia where you were old-timey 1940s cops, and it had...
L.A. Noire.
They promoted it. Yeah, L.A. Noire. It came out with a VR version.
You had full French there.
Yeah.
That's what it's called, okay? That's what's the name of the game. Point is, but then when you watch people play it, the hand motions for when you're moving guns just look silly beyond belief, and I can't stop seeing that. The hands flail about as you try to point shotguns and stuff.
I don't remember that being an issue.
And then you have to rack your shotgun, and it just
works. You're talking about in VR.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anytime it's in Resident Evil VR and in L.A. Noire, and yeah, it's just when you rack it, for something that's bases itself on immersion and getting you into the game, just seeing that stuff. Now, granted, I've never touched a VR. I don't know if you see those hands when you're in VR.
I mean, I would assume that you see them.
I assume, but I'm not good. I don't know. But yeah, when you just see that, I'd be like, that would take me out of the immersion.
The gun should just float there.
It's more immersive than you would think.
Okay, I believe that.
My main issues with VR were that at the time I had to wear glasses, and that caused issues fitting the thing over my face. It was bigger and bulkier. You had a big cable running off the back of your head, and then you put your headphones on as well, so your head's just weighed down. But they've made lighter VR goggles, which I think would help a lot. Also, wireless, I think that's a thing. I hope that's a thing.
That'd be pretty nice. Yeah. I heard that. I mean, I'm assuming all the prices that I see are US for the most part, but you can get an Oculus or something for $300 or something now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, so the prices are going down, but they're still way too expensive when you consider I personally would have to buy a new computer.
I think the main thing with VR that killed my immersion was just not being able to feel what you're holding. If you have a gun where you need two hands to hold it, your second hand just is flailing around in the air, and it really kills the immersion. If it had some way of connecting the controllers together if you're doing a two-handed thing, that would be way better. But yeah, that's the main thing that annoyed me. Just not being able to feel what I'm holding. They've been working on gloves forever.
I was gonna say, yeah, I've seen the videos of that where it's when you can actually it feels like you're cupping a ball, for instance, because the glove hardens on it. You're that's really cool.
Cupping up ball. Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, I mean,
But I mean, the odds of that actually coming to fruition anytime soon. It's another one of those, in 10 years VR will be great.
Well, yeah, and it'll be expensive.
Yeah, well, because it's new technology again, because now it's the gloves, so now you're going to have a new...
at that point, we are literally just describing the setup in Ready Player One.
Pretty much.
Right? They've got the tactile gloves, and then eventually the tactile suit comes out.
This actually reminds me a lot of a book I read a few months ago called Otaku, and essentially gamers in this world are super ripped because they rent out essentially spheres where the walls of it would change with nano ultra technology to make you feel everything you're doing in the game, and then you put on the headset and all that. But if you want to be really good at a game, you gotta be really freaking agile and fit. Like, if you play an MMO, you're running up to the dragon and jumping on its back and stabbing it with the sword and all that. And it costs a lot to rent these, but if you're really good at the game, you can make a lot of money by getting sponsors and streaming and all that sort of thing. So the main character is someone who's doing really well in the game, and then there's a whole conspiracy and, the usual
What is it called?
thing. Otaku.
Literally called otaku. That is hilarious.
Exactly.
That's fantastic.
I mean, isn't the translation for otaku literally just like
Nerd.
Really, I thought it was like obsessed or like hugely passionate about.
Sounds like a nerd to me.
I guess
That's been the translation in my mind always. Like, I know there's
Okay.
gun otakus and anime otakus.
Yeah,
and-
so that's why I just always the fact that there's like the disclaimer before it of what type of otaku you are. So
Yeah.
I always assumed it was like super passionate.
I mean, I think that's accurate, but I think it's also kind of used derogatorily.
Oh yeah, of course it is.
Oh no, that's not the main derogatory one. That's weeb. Weeaboo.
Well, in Japan, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah,
Yeah, otaku
Yeah,
in
that's
Japan
what I was
is
talking
like
about.
the derogatory.
or at least that's how it always came off to me.
That's what I learned from my animes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my animes taught me all I need to know about that damn there Japan.
I realized how silly the statement was after I started to say it.
I'm
it's
sure
fine.
it's accurate.
Well, it's just because, like in my mind, when I hear nerd, my mind associates it with like super intelligent, science and computers.
Maybe
Where it's
geek
like-
might be better.
Yeah.
Still not perfect.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, nothing ever is. That's why
yeah,
language
you're
is hard.
trying to translate something.
Quick, throw out other terms that don't make sense. Schadenfreude.
Hypertrophy.
Hypertrophy, like something becoming weaker.
Well, so like I was just making a joke because you can say it like it's spelt like hypertrophy.
Like an awesome trophy.
Yeah, but it's like pronounced hypertrophy,
Hypertrophy.
right? And it's muscle growth, right?
Yeah.
In that context, but
The opposite of atrophy.
The opposite of what I said it was.
yeah, pretty much, which is
Well, you tried.
I-
I mean,
Or is that hypotrophy? Like hyperthermia and hypothermia.
yeah, or
Sure.
hypocaloric and hypercaloric.
Yeah. Hypoglycemic, hyperglycemic. We can just keep going on with examples.
Yeah, we could.
yeah, forever.
Yeah.
But we won't.
No, instead we'll talk about movies.
Movies.
Movies. Who likes movies?
I like
I
movies.
love movies. Watch anything cool recently?
Well, do you want to hear about the worst movie of all time? Do you want to hear about biopic, also known as a biopic, but I don't like saying that, so I say the wrong way.
I want to hear about the terrible movie.
The worst movie has to be The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
I love Secret Life of Walter Mitty. You are incorrect. No, it's Risen,
Risen, okay.
which you've probably never
No,
heard
I-
of.
Is that
definitely
a
haven't.
zombie movie?
No, it's an alien movie.
Damn.
And it has, on Rotten Tomatoes, has not been reviewed by critics and has a 3% audience score.
Did you just say Risen is an
Aliens.
alien movie?
I figured undead.
Yes.
Are you talking about the one that I've just Googled that is clearly about Jesus
No.
from 2016?
No, it's from 2021.
Okay, tell me about
I don't
this
know,
movie.
aliens? Jesus? That one sounds like a good premise already.
Yeah, like, I mean, forget, what is it? Jesus versus vampires, that movie? Yeah, now it's Jesus is an alien.
I mean, Jesus Christ versus Vampires was an amazing movie in the Room sort of way.
Yeah, but no, allow me to set the scene. Yeah, small town somewhere. I want to say it's Canada, but I can't recall. They call it Badger. I don't know if that's a real place or not. I just got really confused because when they show it on like a map on their phone in really terribly done CGI, like right below Badger shows Airdrie, which is in Alberta, and then also later on they talk about stuff being found in Alberta, Canada. So I don't know if this is supposed to be there because the military is very U.S. and this is all done in the U.S. So I don't know. Anyway, small town, family sitting down for dinner. Suddenly, giant explosion. They wake up, confused, when suddenly they all choke to death and die. So, turns out, our protagonist, female doctor, I don't know anybody's names in this movie, is seen as being an alcoholic. Point is that the military shows up, knocks on the door, says, "We need you to come with us." So she does, and essentially she gets there and finds out that, surprise, surprise, some sort of meteorite has crashed near this town, and the whole place is cordoned off. So her and a couple of the scientists need to go in and figure out what the heck is going on. So they start going in there, and she finds in this fog ruined place, essentially it's all turned to dust pretty much, a 2-inch tall leaf. And she decides that the best thing to do is not tell anybody about it. So they go back to the military base and they have the bodies of the people who have died. There were like 1,300 people in the town, 49 bodies were recovered, and suddenly bodies jump back to life. Ooh. Oh my god, so scary. And so they're sitting there doing all this stuff. They tried cutting some of them open when they were still dead and got like the worst CGI known to man, and then they healed themselves. And what female doctor does is what every scientist would do, which is go onto YouTube, watch a video of the meteorite coming in and crashing, going to the comments, seeing one of those clearly spam links that are put under there where it says, "This has happened before. Quick, watch this video before it's deleted from the internet forever." And she clicks it and watches an interview that was done in Russia like 6 years previously or some garbage, where another meteorite strike happened in Russia and the Russians barricaded half of the city and burned it all with fire. So she ends up at a meeting in front of the president and says, "We should not destroy these people or any of the place that's there because I have this video that I found on the dark web that shows that it happened in Russia and the Russians, burned it all down." And the president very rightly says, "How do you know that this isn't fake?" And she says, "I don't know." So they pretty much discount her entirely. So anyway, next thing you know is male doctor shows up and goes, "Oh my god, all of the dead people who rose back to life are all facing in the same direction.
Oh my god.
maybe there's some relevance there." So they find out that this giant tree rose up in the ground where that 2-inch little leaf thing was, and then female doctor says, "Oh yeah, I saw that before," and the military rightly says, "Why didn't you tell anybody? You had one job, which was go in there and try to find out anything that was untoward." And she goes, who knows? So they take one of the alien people zombie people kinda, who rose from the dead, bring him to the tree, and he starts communicating with it. And they're all like, "Oh my god, he's talking to aliens. What's going on?" And so they discover that all the information that the aliens got about, Earth was from this random person known as Supernova 94. So the hunt's on. Who is Supernova 94? Spoilers, that doesn't matter. What does matter is that they never take the alien away from the tree. So he's just sitting there for God knows how many days.
They never
go
take
back
the alien where?
Back to the tree, like away from the tree. They never bring him back anywhere. So what ends up happening is he's sitting there talking to female doctor because he just wants to talk to female doctor or scientist, whatever. And he watches as 2 scientists start doing, testing on the tree and poking it with, needles to get samples. And he goes crazy and says, "Stop it." And he goes, "I have powers." And he starts staring at one of the scientists that is taking the sample for like 20 freaking seconds. And then pretty much he's mind controlling him and forces the guy to like undo his hazmat suit and breathe the toxic air so he dies. This whole time, there is literally a squad of soldiers pointing guns at the alien, just yelling at him to stop for like 2 minutes. And what happens? Oh, they don't shoot him, and then he uses more of his powers to make them clutch their heads and kill each other. And you're like, okay.
Why not?
So then the military finally decides, you know what we need to do? We need to nuke this tree. And so they go to fire off nukes, but oh no, turns out alien can now make a force field around the tree. And so nothing works, and they just all give up. So next we see female scientists just randomly wandering around, watching videos on her phone of turns out all these little seed pods have, been found on Earth, and it must be from the aliens, sending their people down for when the tree finally terraforms all of the Earth because it's killing all their crops and everything. And she goes to the tree, talks to the zombie alien dude, and here's our big reveal. It turns out that her father was like a senator, and when she was a child, an alien came to Earth, one of the real aliens from the planet came to Earth, tried to plant one of the trees, but it was found, and it died because it couldn't breathe our atmosphere. And so they had it in a pod, and they brought the senator to come see it, and he brought his daughter for literal no reason, and she... And she touched the glass that the alien was, in. It was in like a glass case, and she touched the glass, and it touched the glass too, and it altered her DNA and turned her into an alien. And so then she has flashbacks to her as a child where suddenly she's able to make like a shortwave radio which somehow can shoot off information into space, and she was Supernova 94. But also weird conversations with her teachers where the teachers are saying that she's an alien and she can control people and yada yada, but none of that mattered, and somehow her parents just ignored it all. And so the movie essentially ends with the Earth being terraformed, everyone dying, and there's a final shot of her sprouting out angel wings, pretty much, which makes no sense because the aliens didn't have wings.
We're going back to the Jesus movie. It totally makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
God.
So
that
point
sounds
is,
like
it's a terrible movie.
That sounds like a mess.
Even better, it's like a 2-hour-long movie because for some reason the director decided that the best way to pad it out was to have these really long, like 30-second shots on people's faces non-stop, and just like you're just watching nothing for like 30 seconds at a time. It's great.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad director.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be. Well, don't worry. Not only is it the director, but he was also the writer and the producer.
Well, that explains a lot.
Was he a main character?
No.
Not going that far? Okay.
I don't think
sure
so.
He was
might have
doing
been.
something very deep and effective with that film, assuming it was a he.
I think it got released on like Amazon or something. Their streaming platform, whatever that's called. Don't know what it's called. But yeah.
Prime? It's literally just called Prime.
Sure. But yeah, point is that terrible movie. Don't watch it.
Thank you for the warning.
You're welcome.
Oh, he's Australian.
I mean, it might have been a cool, maybe half hour.
A short film, maybe?
Short, yeah. Like, that could have been interesting. Instead, it was a garbled mess of crap.
Well, I'm sure you could edit it down if you were so inclined. Just,
Anything can be saved in the editing room. Except maybe the room.
Anything.
Absolutely anything,
I
yes.
mean, the room doesn't need editing. It's perfect the way it is.
It absolutely is. I agree.
Disagree.
Well,
I
you just don't
absolutely
like the
love that room. That movie.
I can't stand it. I hate everything about it.
It is a drinking movie. I'll give it that. But it's amazing.
If you say so.
That's how I'd describe it. I do say so.
Yeah, that's acceptable.
But yeah, have you watched anything?
I did just finish watching Reacher on Prime.
And how was it?
The amazing movie with Tom Cruise?
No. That was Jack
the
Reacher.
TV show, I think.
Reacher is the TV show with the dude from Blue Mountain State who played Fat. If anybody remembers that show from like the early 2010s.
I do. It was a good show.
Or show, not movie, on Spike. But yeah, so he plays Jack Reacher in this one. So he's actually tall and imposing instead of short and Tom Cruise. And they adapted the first novel, did a really good job with it. Like, solid thing. The acting was good. A couple of things that I could complain about. The climax was a little lackluster. But what you gonna do?
Was it actiony?
It was actiony, and it was an appropriate level of brutally actiony because that first book is bloody, and the show did a very good job of following in that bloody footstep.
Yeah, I worked with a fan of the books, and he was very upset over the interpretation with Tom Cruise, because one of the main things about Reacher is that he is a huge man.
Yes, yeah. No, and Tom Cruise is 5'5", and you can't make Tom Cruise look like he's 6'5" and 270 pounds. You just can't.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
Like, don't get me wrong, he's a great action star, does his own stunts, he's great in Mission Impossible and other roles like that. He just didn't suit this one.
Like, quite frankly, the movie wasn't bad. Either one of them.
Yeah.
But, call them something else.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a generic action hero name, and they just called it that to try and get the fans of the books to come.
And I mean, the first movie, at the very least, as far as I understand it, was based off of one of the later books as well.
Okay. All right. Never mind. I retract my statement.
But, yeah, like, you lose a lot of the character from the few books that I've read when you make him Tom Cruise, right? Like, Alan Ritchson, I think is his name. The guy they got to do him in the show, much better, and I think pulled it off very well.
Good.
Yeah.
I got nothing else to say.
It's all actiony and extreme.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's action in it, but like it's still a.
Is it good action or is it?
Oh, it's brutal action.
Born Identity action.
No, it's.
Yeah, but as in the cuts, can you actually see them fight, or is it where they cut so fast you can't tell?
Oh, no.
Is it Liam Neeson jumping over a fence?
I mean, this was in the trailer, so I'll talk about it. There's like a scene of him fighting a bunch of dudes in the bathroom in prison. It's brutal.
That is where I would fight, in the bathroom.
And yeah, no. You can tell they had Richardson choreograph the whole thing with everybody and really go into it, because it felt just visceral watching
Fantastic.
it. Yeah, like he gouges a dude's eye out.
So it's a good place to jump into the Reacher series if you haven't read.
Oh
or
yeah, I
watched
mean
any.
it's a really good adaptation of the first book. 8 episodes of TV. It was really good, tightly told. Yeah, I would tell people to watch it.
Cool. Give it a go.
Yeah.
Any other movies anyone would like to talk about?
I don't know. What about you? What have you talked about?
I
watched
decided
or-
to watch an old 90s horror action-y film.
Ooh, which one?
It was funnier than anything else. It was called Deep Rising.
Oh my god, I
Now,
love that movie.
Is that the one that recently came out with Twilight Girl, Kristen Stewart?
No, that you're thinking of that's Underwater.
Oh,
That
okay.
one was
I
adequate.
understand the confusion.
So which one's Deep Rising?
This is from 98, and
Oh.
this is a creature film. It takes part mostly on a cruise ship, and there's something that killed all the people on it.
This is the movie that
and,
makes me not go on cruise ships.
For me, it would have been Ghost Ship, personally.
I never saw it.
That one had the...
For me, it would just be real cruise ships where people constantly fall overboard and disappear into the depths.
I mean, also,
and, you know,
yes.
COVID and all that whole thing.
Well, I don't care about COVID. I'm just saying in general for cruise ships. Even before that,
I
just,
care about COVID.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, fine. I'm saying I think that having ships with unlimited alcohol on the middle of the ocean is a bad
I
combination.
mean, yeah.
You're not wrong.
I
And they always have been petri dishes for tons of diseases.
Oh,
you have
yeah.
tons of people just confined together.
Yeah, but they always have. You even have it on video sometimes of the guys just falling overboard in the middle of the night, and you're like, they're gone.
well, I mean, yeah,
That's terrifying. Yeah,
you
that just
would
scares
die.
me.
You would hit it would, when you hit the water, it'd be like hitting concrete.
Well, that'd be the goal. Because if you do survive, then you're gonna be sitting there until your body gives out and you drown. So that sounds horrific.
I mean, if there's videos of people falling off, if you survive, I would assume that the person would be like, "Hey, somebody just fell off the boat."
No, because it happens. It happens in the middle of the night. It's just security camera footage.
Wait,
they
so
look over
who's
afterwards.
taking a video of it?
No, it's security
Oh.
camera footage.
Okay.
So they look through it after the person disappeared and go,
Yeah.
oh, they
to
fell
see
off.
to see
Oh,
if
no.
they can
Oh,
see if
God.
the person has fallen. Because there was one that happened recently where a woman fell off a cruise ship and they never found her body because turns out the ocean is vast.
You don't say.
Is it?
Yeah. So I have no desire to go on cruise ships, but you're saying Deep Rising is also scary because not only do they have to worry about that, they have to worry about a creature.
Absolutely. And this is one of those situations where something bad happens in the location, then a bunch of people show up and go, Where is everyone? Why are there all these dead bodies? What's going on? And then they're trying to figure it out.
No dead bodies.
There are no dead bodies for a while. Eventually they find a bunch of jellified
Yeah, that's right.
skeletons and things like that.
The creature needs to eat.
It does need to eat. He's a big, hungry, tentacly boy.
Eats a lady through a toilet.
Yeah, that's pretty early on in the movie. Just pulls her down through it. It's rough.
Yeah.
So now we also have to be afraid of toilets. Great.
Well, yeah, you should be. In general, watch out for those. But this movie did do a really good job of hiding the creature for a large part. And thank goodness they did, because the CGI has not aged well. I don't know how good it would have compared to other things back in the day of 1998. It's very shiny CGI. You know, that stuff that's really obvious?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially what you're saying is that the CGI that was in Risen.
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
Actually, I would go so far as to argue that Risen has worse CGI than your movie Deep Rising.
You know, it probably does, because this is all tentacles and it's an ocean monster, so it's supposed to look shiny and wet, so it worked for the theme, what they were going for there. And there were lots of cool practical effects, like tentacles going underneath the metal walls and running along it towards the people, and they're freaking out because they have no idea why everything's buckling and breaking around them, because they haven't seen the creature for the longest time.
Yeah.
And essentially, it's a giant octopus whose tentacles can eat people. They called it some real creature, but like a hugely mutated from the depths of the ocean thing.
That makes sense.
So do they have the scene where they perform research to figure out what it is exactly?
No, they just have a guy saying, hey, this creature, it's like really small and it eats things by using its tentacles, and it usually only grows to like a golf ball that's maximum size up near the top of the ocean. But as you go deeper, you can find ones that are big enough to eat sharks. And if you go even deeper, how big do you think it is then? Da, da, da. Then tentacles. Go all about, eat a bunch of people, then keep eating more people. And then, people you think die, come back, and people you thought were going to get away die. The minorities die first, because it's an older horror film, and at the end it's a guy and a girl who are now, well, not madly in love, but attracted to each other, shared trauma, all that.
What you're saying is it's
relief.
a 90s action movie with a horror sub-element?
It is filling a lot of the tropes, yeah.
I mean, those exist in the 2000s too.
Absolutely. But if you want a schlocky film, I'd recommend it. It was fun.
I will add it to my list.
Yeah, like it epitomized 90s, just like the way it was shot, the quality of the film, just like the soundtrack. Like it wasn't, who was big back then?
Steven
Blink
Seagal.
182. No, I'm thinking even further ahead. It wasn't that sort of thing, but just like the orchestral soundtrack sounded like the time.
Yeah.
And then at the end there's a big chase down a flooded hallway on a skidoo.
I was hoping you were going to say on a surfboard, but
there was a guy who escapes on a surfboard, so you're not wrong.
yeah, he's great.
He is great. Yeah, and the comedy also reflected its time too. But that's why you should watch it.
Yeah, actually, I've been on the 90s, early 2000s movie kick lately, so
it was a different time.
It was.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Thinking about that was a terrible statement because, of course, it was a different time. But you know what I meant. It felt different. They had a different approach to media, movies, TV shows, all that. As everyone knows, 9/11 came and then everyone became pessimistic overnight.
I mean, there were pessimistic movies made before
I know.
9/11.
It's just a
too.
generalization.
It became much worse.
Well,
Yeah.
I remember watching the DVD
Take off your
commentaries
shoes in airports.
on Born Identity back when it came out, and they were talking about how their original plan had been this big action set piece, but they decided they needed to tone it down for after 9/11 because it was too much, so they made it smaller scale. And then one of the directors was like, I don't think action movies are ever going to be the same again.
I mean, it affected Lilo and Stitch.
Did it?
Of all things.
Really?
Yeah, they originally had planned for the giant spaceship to be flown in the middle of a town or city at the climax of the movie, but then 9/11 happened, so they switched it to in the middle of the countryside, more rural area.
Huh.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Yep, 9/11 affected us all, even Disney.
And I own Lilo and Stitch on DVD.
Good movie.
It was one of the first DVDs I ever got. Came with the DVD player. That and Ice Age.
The lengths that rat would go to.
Yep.
Ice Age was fantastic.
It was a good movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that at pretty much the same time as Shrek, or was it before or after?
A little bit after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's after Shrek came first. Good old Shrek.
That movie holds up.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
And it's funny because I discovered yesterday that people who were not performing well enough for the studio were taken off of Prince of Egypt, I think it was, to be put on Shrek as punishment.
That's hilarious.
Well, clearly all their talented people were brought on for Shrek. So there you go.
I mean, that was the same thing with, well, not exactly the same, but with Lion King and Pocahontas, all of the money went into Pocahontas, and the dregs were sort of given to Lion King. But I think most people would agree Lion King is a much more, I don't know if better is the best word, engaging, impactful
more popular
movie.
Though,
Yeah.
to be fair, like Pocahontas was very successful.
Yeah, don't get me
as
wrong,
well.
it was a great movie, but if I
Yeah,
were to
I
compare
feel
the
like-
two, I love the Lion King a lot
I
more.
can safely say I remember nothing about Pocahontas.
Really? Because if you were to ask me,
Wasn't Kevin Kline like the voice of Smith?
The bad
No,
guy?
wasn't it? No, wasn't it John Smith John Smith was, I want to say, Mel Gibson.
Really?
I think so.
Oh, that's
Don't
fun.
quote me on that.
I'm quoting you on that.
Oh crap! Because that's my old memory. But yeah, I mean, "Colors of the Wind" is an amazing song.
I remember that song and
Yeah,
Savages.
and the Savages
yeah,
song.
that
Yep.
one. But
Yeah, it
Lion
was
King,
Mel
I remember
Gibson.
pretty much
Man.
all the songs.
90s Disney had really good songs. But yeah, like Disney, like 90s Disney, the songs were amazing. Like Mulan, one of the best songs of all
Yeah,
time.
Mulan is killer.
Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Hellfire?
guess the thing, I haven't seen Encanto, but supposedly Encanto's Where is or we don't talk about, I don't know the guy's name, Bronson?
Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno. Supposedly their most successful song of all time.
Really?
I'm gonna let you finish, but Be a Man was the best Disney song of all time.
Now that is an aged meme.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
what I
who Kevin
provide.
Kline voiced. He voiced Captain Phoebus in The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Okay.
there
Very
you
similar
go.
character, that's fair.
Yeah, that's where that came from.
But also, to be fair, I think that, I mean, over time, obviously, new songs are going to be the most popular of all time.
There's more people.
Just because there's more people,
Yeah.
and it's easier to listen to it, right?
Yeah.
You can just go on YouTube and type in whatever the song is. Now, maybe I should have done that with We Don't Talk About Bruno, because I've never heard it, so I don't know if it's good or not.
It's a fine song. I would prefer the old ones, but maybe that's nostalgia talking, so who knows?
Yeah, or maybe we're just old and not with it anymore.
What's a
Oh,
fine song?
I've never been with it.
Yeah, maybe we can't appreciate how great these new songs are.
Perhaps.
Hey, don't get me wrong, it was a good movie.
What was a
But
good movie?
Encanto.
I have no idea what that is.
It's the newest Pixar?
No, this one's Disney.
Well, it's
like Frozen.
Disney's Pixar. Yeah, but Disney owns Pixar.
I don't think Pixar
Oh,
did this one, actually.
This one. Okay, I saw a trailer
Well,
for it.
there's an easy way to find out.
Google, help me.
Walt Disney.
Not Pixar? It is not Pixar.
No, it's Disney.
Oh,
I have it
well,
on
there
good
you go.
authority.
Okay, I believe you. But yeah, because it is Disney.
I mean,
yeah.
with music written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, I'm sure the music's great.
I don't know who that is.
Hamilton.
Oh,
I've never seen Hamilton.
I know, but I'm just saying he wrote Hamilton.
Oh, okay. Well,
I did not realize Rosa Diaz was the main character from
oh
Brooklyn
yeah,
Nine-Nine.
I did know that. Yeah, from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh.
Fantastic. That made it much better in my eyes, actually.
Well, maybe I should watch Encanto then.
Wait, so she did all the singing too?
She sure did.
Assuming there is any singing.
I mean, did she?
Well, there's
'Cause
no,
there
there's
have been
no,
instances.
there's no singing voice listed under her character's name.
Yeah, go her. That's
Nice.
some range. Stephanie Beatrice.
Well, I mean, have you ever heard her like her normal speaking voice?
It throws me off, yeah.
I know, it's so weird when you
I
compare
definitely
it to
have not.
how she speaks in Brooklyn
Have not.
Nine-Nine. Yeah, it's
She does not sound like her character at all. It's
like
weird.
way more high pitched and like
She's
bubbly.
older than I
and-
thought she was too.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Well, do you want to hear about dead people or bicyclists?
I mean, between the options, dead people.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, well then I watched Pierrepoint, The Last Hangman.
And what is it about?
Yeah.
It is about a man named Pierrepoint, who was, if you believe it or not, the last hangman.
What, like
All
in,
right, no
where?
false
in-
advertising.
In France?
No, it was in Britain.
Oh,
And between his tenure as a hangman, I believe he hung about 608 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was a very interesting movie, if I were to say so. The person who portrayed Pierrepoint, I don't know the actor's name, but it was Wormtail from the Harry Potter series.
Oh.
okay.
Yeah, and so it's essentially just, a period of his life where he's going through, and he had an entire system set up where he would, when they decided that the day had come for whoever the criminal was to be hung, he would show up, look through a keyhole, try to determine from sight how tall he was, how much he weighed, in order to set his the noose into the perfect position so that when he pulled the lever, they would pretty much die instantaneously and sever between the second and third vertebrae. And it was done to such a good degree, and he was so precise about it and his measurements, that he was the one who got called over to Germany to do the hangings for the Nuremberg trials.
Oh.
I mean, if you
And
got a
so it-
skill, might as well capitalize on it.
And so it pretty much just devolves near the end into a bit preachy. I don't know. I did some Googling afterwards to see how true it was. Not entirely sure how true to life it really is. However, it is known that one of the people who frequented his bar, because he also owned and ran a bar, ended up committing murder and was to be hung, and he was the one who hung him. Don't know how much it affected him he did write a autobiography, I believe, and in that he states that it was just another job for him, blah blah blah, and was trying to be dispassionate about it. In the movie they portray it more as it really affected him, coupled with the rising belief in Britain that the death penalty should be abolished. He then uses that as an excuse kind of to resign. They have it set up so that because the way it generally worked for him is that if he got called up to kill someone, he would drive there, and then if the person who was to be murdered, or do you call it murdered, who was to have their sentence fulfilled, got clemency at the last minute, the prison would still pay him his due for showing up because he was going to do the job. And so there was one time where he drove to perform the deed, person got clemency, and the prison didn't pay him, and so he resigned. And so there was a fight with the sheriff of whoever ran the prison, and that is why he resigned and stopped being a hangman. According to the autobiography, it was literally just that. The dispute said, screw you, I'm resigning. In the movie, it's more like the act of performing these executions weighed on his soul. He then used the fact that he didn't get paid for that one as an excuse to then resign and not have to do it anymore.
So he got paid per execution?
Yeah, typically.
Yes, per execution.
Yeah,
and they just... The only thing is that they have it so that... I think it was 1974, he did have a statement that he wrote where he condemned the death penalty, but there's another comment on like Wikipedia where he died, I don't remember how many years after he wrote that, but if he recanted that position, we don't know. But overall, I would say it's a really good movie, a solid one. It's very not visceral because there's no blood, but it's very real. Like they put a lot of effort into showing it as it was.
Okay,
I mean that's fair.
The only one downside is that the actor, again, don't know his name, but Wormtail, I'm just gonna call him
Anthony
Wormtail.
Spall. Timothy Spall. He failed one scene, and I wish that they reshot it. It's when they first start the hangings in Nuremberg. The final, they hung 13 people, and then they were each getting put into coffins. So he takes the bodies down, wipes them down, puts them in the coffin, send them off, and they're short one coffin. And his helper says, yeah, they didn't have enough coffins, we're just going to stretcher this guy out. And he goes on what's supposed to be a tirade about how that's not how it's done. They serve their sentence when they were hung. Their body deserves dignity, and we are going to do it properly. Go find me another coffin. And he's supposed to be really incensed and angry, and it's just not. It was just a bad take.
Yeah, they really should have just redone that one take and actually portrayed him as angry, because there is a scene much later when he's getting affected by the job and all the people who hate him, because it turns out that they, for some weird reason, I don't know what the case was for it, but they say who the hangman's name is during these Nuremberg trials. So when he returns home, because his job was, he didn't share it with anybody, right? You don't tell people you're a hangman. So it was just something that he did. And when he came back, everybody knew his name and everyone knew what he did. And so he became super famous overnight. And then, of course, it starts devolving into people start hating him for what he does later on. And I cannot fathom why they would bother to share that, because the one thing that I do know, though, I mean, I don't know if this is just, knowledge that gets passed through, is that even in medieval times, you never wanted to know the identity of the hangman.
Well, yeah, you didn't want to tell anybody in case somebody was like, I'm going to go murder the hangman for hanging my family member.
So I don't know why. Yeah, so I don't know why they let that loose during the trials. But
who knows?
There you go. Yeah, it's a solid movie. If you are interested in like a real biopic of someone who lived and did something that is now seen, well, it's not done anymore, like official, death penalty hangings, they're not really a thing, then watch it. It's horrifying and yet, enthralling to watch.
I might just have to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not opposed. It's going on the list.
Yeah, the only other one is The Flying Scotsman of Graham O'Breeze, I believe his name was.
And what's that one about, apart from the obvious?
90s famous cyclist. Essentially what ended up happening is that he was looking and decided that bikes, the way bikes are currently for, competitive cycling, they are not aerodynamic. And so he made his own bike, his own prototype out of like dishwasher parts and all this stuff, and proceeded to break a bunch of records. And it's essentially just, his life. He has a bunch of difficulties. He has bipolar disorder, and he suffered through depression. And so it's him coming to terms with all this and, trying to live his life while also trying to compete. And the thing that infuriates me, because it turns out all this stuff was true, is how the committee that runs cycling punished him beyond belief because they hated that some guy in his garage was able to make these bikes that were breaking records.
Of course they did.
Yep, so as you proceed through this and they just keep shooting him down, they are literally changing, and this actually happened, they literally changed the rules on, your bike seat needs to be at least 5 centimeters away from this piece of the bike. You need to be at this particular angle and all this. And so he'd constantly keep changing his bike in order to fit these. And then they started banning the position that he used to ride. you're not allowed to, have your hands touch your chest. And so then they ban that position. And so then they say your biking position is too dangerous. He ended up creating a position which I want to say is still used today called the Superman position.
Is that where you lie down on the seat while going downhill?
Okay. You don't fully lie down, but it's when you keep your arms like straight in front of you. And so he developed that position, and that position went on to win like 7 world championships. Not him, but that position. It was essentially, it would be the equivalent of in running. You know how you start at the bottom and you push off to start running?
Yeah.
And it used to be you started standing straight up. It would be as if someone developed that running position and then they ban it just because. So they ended up banning that Superman position, and then finally in 2011, I think it was 2010, 2011. So pretty recently, they finally came out and said, okay, we're not banning that stuff anymore because we're now acknowledging that we're stifling, the sport and, technical progress in improving it.
This sounds like when they instituted rules in bodybuilding where you couldn't win the Olympia 2 years in a row because some God, I can't remember who it was. I think it was like Frank Zane or somebody just like came in and crushed the Olympia. Oh wait, no, it was you couldn't win it more than twice. That's what it was.
Oh.
Like twice ever? Wow, that's stupid.
Yeah, because they thought his physique was just that unbeatable.
You're too good. Get out of here.
Pretty much.
It's no fun.
You look at these committees and you're just like, this is why everyone hates you, and it's a giant scam, because it turns out that the guy who, their golden child as it were, had a bike that cost like $500,000 in 1990s money to make and be put together. And so for appearance's sake, gotta make it seem all prestigious and, richy rich.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the fact that they actually did that to this man, and he's still biking today, but obviously he's older now, so he just does it for fun for the most part. You just sit there and you go, screw you guys. No wonder everyone, hates these giant overarching committees instituting random rules.
God,
Well, it's like FIFA or whatever, or the Olympic Committee.
Oh God,
yeah, exactly.
The International Weightlifting Federation.
Yeah, all of them. And it's just, it's the definition of current, boys clubs. You're not one of us, then we're going to use everything in our power to make sure you can't compete. You can't be a part of this.
So you want to know what's ridiculous?
Yes, I do.
The IWF is so corrupt, the IOC is going to remove Olympic weightlifting from the Olympics.
Wow.
Think about that for a second.
Impressive.
Yeah. Right?
I mean, at that point, you'd think that the Olympic Committee, though they're not much better, should just make their own committee for weightlifting to then keep it in.
So yeah, it's hilarious that's what's happening. Well, the issue is that they keep telling the IWF, you need to restructure, and the IWF just keeps telling them to fuck off. Right? There's too much money in it because of the way they run their anti-doping, right?
Yeah.
In certain countries, the allegations are basically that, you'd pay the IWF to falsify your drug tests, essentially.
Huh.
Right? It's so like it doesn't work in the US because USADA runs all the drug testing in the US, and the same in Canada and the UK, but there's like China and stuff. The people that run the doping in China are the IWF. Like they're the ones that run the lab.
Huh. So when is it being removed from the Olympics?
Apparently Los Angeles, 2028.
Is that the last one it's going to be in, or the first one it's not going to be in?
The first one it's not going.
So we have a limited run in order to win our medals in weightlifting, is what you're saying.
Pretty much.
We got to get started now. Perfect.
Pretty much. So if you wanna get into Olympic weightlifting, now's the time.
I'll be the next Graham O'Breeze, but for weightlifting.
Yeah. Oh God.
Be afraid of my aerodynamic weights.
That's all it takes, just triangular weights instead of circular.
And then they'll ban it.
Rotating barbells were huge to Olympic weightlifting.
That makes sense.
Right? Before the collars wouldn't spin, so they were fixed, which, nightmare.
Sounds like
you've
a
ever
nightmare.
tried to do a clean or snatch.
As everyone knows, I do all the snatches.
I know you
Yeah,
don't.
I snatch a lot of things.
I snatched the Doritos out of the pantry.
Is there a version of weightlifting, or I guess bodybuilding, where they do allow as much steroid use as you want?
There's untested powerlifting.
Okay.
And then what you're really looking for is the strong. Like, if you, strongman is an untested sport, and the super heavyweights get up to, 400 pounds. And they're all giant, right? Like Hafthor is like 6'7", 400 and something when he competed.
Ridiculous.
Right? I mean, he pulled 501 kilos. It's like, what, 1,200 pounds.
Yeah, that's is that the one where you can lift a fridge or
I mean, yeah, like strongman.
washing machines and run around an obstacle course of sorts?
That's like more old school World's Strongest Man. Like, I don't think they've done...
Now they lift boulders.
Yeah, stones and log lifts and stuff like that. You know, you might do car deadlifts, right? Or Viking presses.
That's very old-fashioned.
Yeah. Keg tosses.
Caber tosses?
If it ain't the caber toss, I'm not interested.
No caber toss. That one's usually Highland Games, obviously. Yeah, like there's tons of stuff. Like one of the first ever instance of World's Strongest Man, Lou Ferrigno was in, which is hilarious. But they had people bending rebar
On their knee? Or just holding it straight in front of them?
However you wanted to figure out how to bend it, you just had to bend it with your hands. So like dudes were like putting towels on their heads and like bending it across their skulls.
Fair enough. Put that in the Olympics.
Yeah, World's Strongest Man in the 90s was weird. 80s was weird.
Frying pan rolling?
Yeah, have you never seen that? The guys who literally take a frying pan and they just, roll it around their fist? Yeah. Turn it into a taco.
That one's
or
new to me.
tortilla.
Yeah, you should Google it. There's some really cool stuff. But yeah, and then there's, untested powerlifting too. As many drugs as you want. And then most of professional bodybuilding, like, is untested too, right? Like
I know it's a terrible idea to have untested stuff, but it's also amazing in just seeing what the human body could do at the end of the day.
Yeah, isn't that the old thing that they should just have an Olympics where everything's allowed just to see how much the body can take?
Professional bodybuilders and strongmen's life expectancy isn't any different than anybody else's. The average population. I mean, we did just lose a bunch of bodybuilders in the last 6 months, so everybody thinks that it's worse. But when you get into the actuarial tables and everything, their mortality rates are pretty much the same. The downside, though, is that their mortality rates compared to other athletes, not that good. So
that makes sense.
That's interesting because sumo wrestlers are in their mortality rate is much lower. It's in the 60s.
Specifically bodybuilders, when you compare them to the average population, mortality rates basically the same. But then you compare them to football players and their mortality rate is so much higher than football players. And then if you take out linemen from that analysis, the difference gets insane. So, you look at a bodybuilder population, what do you think? Well, they care about cardio, they want to get bigger muscles, and they eat really healthfully. Everything about that should indicate that their mortality rate should be lower, right? But they clearly do enough drugs to just negate all of those benefits. Yeah, so they have a lot of heart disease, which is a side effect of testosterone use, and other stuff that they use, A lot of the weird diet trends you see that people talk about, eat this, pro bodybuilders eat that, they come from a time when pro bodybuilders were starting to use drugs, and they were basically eating in such a way that it would make sure their livers didn't dissolve. Right?
Oh, that's unpleasant and scary.
So eat 7 meals a day, eat carbs after you work out, but also while you're working out and before, right? All of that stuff comes from the drug regimen that pro bodybuilders use. Right? Because if you're supplementing with insulin, you need a lot of carbs in your diet, and if you're taking certain other drugs, you need to keep nutrients flowing into your body as much as possible.
That makes sense.
Just to keep your hormones and blood lipid levels in the right spot, right? So
I do have a tangent from that. I heard about a fitness forum where someone was complaining about the all milk diet that had been hyped up to him and how it would help him gain a ton of weight. So all right, so let's just go over what you've been doing. So you're drinking a ton of milk every day. Yes. All right, so what are the solids you're having with it? Solids?
Yeah, so he took so the diet's called GOMAD, a gallon of milk a day. Yeah, it is real. It's
real.
Talked about in Starting Strength by Mark Ripito, one of the worst beginner strength training programs ever. It doesn't do anything useful for anybody unless you were previously an athlete, in which case 100% you should use it. But so Rip suggests drinking a gallon of milk a day on top of all of your food to gain as much weight as possible running this program, because anybody over the height of 5'8" according to him should weigh 220 pounds.
Oh, I can weigh whatever I want. Fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's an actual thing, but that is hilarious. That's a story somebody's told me before of telling some dude who wanted to lose weight for spring break. He had 4 weeks. that he needed to do a protein-sparing modified fast. So, like, just eat protein, the odd, like, vegetable, just to spare as much muscle as possible and just drop weight. So the guy ends up drinking mass gainer shakes and eating skin-on, bone-in chicken thighs instead of just chicken breast and the odd vegetable. Couldn't figure out why he's gaining weight.
I wonder. Yeah, for the milk guy, he just had, as you might expect, terrible diarrhea.
Oh, God,
and
yeah.
no weight was staying on.
Yeah, like...
He was getting the opposite of what he was going for. Just having a terrible time.
It's bad enough drinking a gallon of milk, but, like, if he was, even trying to track his calories at all, which he should have been, like, how much milk was he drinking to try and gain weight? Like,
and I'm imagining it's full milk at the very least. Like, there's a lot of fat in it, but
even then, so much milk. Just that would be an obscene amount of milk. I can't even.
Well, on that happy note, I think we've done a show.
Pats on the back.
Yep. We
Virtually.
did it. Good job, team.
Sounds good to me.
We've learned important things today. Well, one important thing, if you hear about a diet where you're supposed to drink a lot of milk, okay. You're taking the wrong thing
Don't
from
drink
this.
milk.
Okay, so let's say it's whole milk.
Okay, no, we're done. Anyway, he's been great.
He's been grim.
And he's been David.
Yes, I have been David.